I always knew my sister would find a way to overshadow me, even on my own wedding day. That is the essence of who Nora is, the star around which our entire family orbits. I just never thought she would cross the line by laying claim to my wedding dress. I am Alice, and for 28 years, I have been the other daughter, the dependable one, the sensible one, the one who blends quietly into the background while Nora sparkles center stage. Tonight, at her engagement party, it is as if I am watching a rerun of my life, every frame already burned into my memory. "Oh, darling, you look absolutely radiant," Mom gushes, her hands fussing over Nora's flawless curls. "Ashton is such a catch. I knew he was the one for you the moment I met him." I stand off to the side, sipping champagne, trying not to choke on the reminder of how she had reacted to my engagement 6 months ago. "He seems nice enough," she had said, her indifference cutting deeper than any insult. "Alice, honey, could you get more appetizers from the kitchen?" Dad calls out. He does not even bother looking at me. Of course, even at Nora's engagement party, I am reduced to playing the family's unofficial caterer. "I will help," Nicholas offers softly, squeezing my hand in silent support. God, I love him for that. Together, we retreat to the kitchen. I begin arranging crackers and cheese on a platter while Nicholas uncorks another bottle of wine. "You okay?" he asks, his voice gentle but probing. I hesitate, feeling the weight of unspoken words. "I am fine. It is just... sometimes I wonder if they even see me at all." "Hey." He pulls me close, his warmth soothing the tension I barely realized I was holding. "I see you. You are the most amazing person I know." His words ease the ache in my chest, but the moment is shattered by a burst of laughter from the living room. I glance around the corner to see Nora holding court like a queen, champagne flute in hand, recounting the story of her proposal. "And then Ashton got down on one knee right there in Central Park," she exclaims, "with a string quartet playing our song. It was like something out of a movie." Mom sighs dreamily, dabbing at an imaginary tear. "Oh, that is so romantic." I remember Nicholas's proposal. Quiet, intimate, and perfect in its simplicity. He had cooked dinner, his nerves adorably on display, and we had slow danced in our tiny living room before he popped the question. My mother's reaction? "At least you are finally settling down." "Alice!" Nora's voice snaps me out of my thoughts. "Where are those appetizers? Everyone is starving!" I grab the platter and return to the party, forcing a smile, but as I set the food down, I catch a conversation that makes my blood run cold. "Speaking of the wedding," Nora says in a hushed, conspiratorial tone, "I was thinking about Alice's dress." I freeze, my pulse pounding in my ears. "The one she bought for her wedding?" Mom asks. "Yes! It is beautiful, right? And since she is not getting married until next year anyway, my wedding is in 3 months and that dress would be perfect for my garden ceremony." "Oh, absolutely," Mom agrees without hesitation. "You are her sister after all. I am sure she would not mind. It would look stunning on you." Stunning. The word echoes in my mind like a slap. That dress was mine, something I had spent months searching for, saving for, because Mom had refused to help with the cost. But she is more than happy to fund Nora's dream wedding. "I will talk to her about it tomorrow," Nora continues. "She will understand. She always does." My grip on the platter tightens as rage bubbles to the surface. I step into the room with more force than intended, sending crackers skittering across the tray. A few heads turn. "Everything okay, sweetie?" Dad finally notices me for once. I lock eyes with Nora. She has the decency to look a little guilty, but there is that familiar gleam in her expression, the one that says she already knows she will get what she wants. She always does. "Everything is fine," I reply, my voice deceptively calm. But inside, something shifts. Years of being sidelined, overlooked, and dismissed harden into a crystal-clear moment of resolve. Nora wants my wedding dress? Fine, let her try. But this time she is in for a surprise. This time, I am done being the practical one, the one who always steps aside. From across the room, Samantha, my best friend, catches my eye. She raises an eyebrow, silently asking if I am okay. I give a subtle shake of my head. Not now. Because right now, as Nora soaks in the adoration of everyone around her, I know one thing for certain. Her perfect day is about to become anything but perfect. The next morning, I was folding a pile of laundry when the doorbell rang. I paused, letting out a sigh because I already knew who it was. Nora. She had never been one to wait when she wanted something. The door barely had time to open before she brushed past me into the apartment, her designer handbag swaying with an air of entitlement. "Alice!" she chirped as if she owned the place. I need to talk to you about something important. I barely glanced up, continuing to fold my clothes. Coffee? I asked, trying to keep things light. Maybe she'd get the hint and leave. No time, she shot back. Listen, I've been thinking about your wedding dress. She perched on my couch like a cat claiming its favorite spot, her posture painfully perfect, a well-rehearsed smile on her face. I felt a chill. You know how my wedding's coming up first, right? She continued, her tone honey-sweet but razor-sharp. And that dress would be absolutely perfect for my garden theme. It took a second for the words to fully sink in. I stopped folding and turned to face her, setting a towel down deliberately. You want my wedding dress? Just to borrow, she said with a dismissive wave. You're not using it for months anyway. She leaned forward, her eyes wide with faux innocence. Come on, Ellie. You know how much this means to me. Before I could even formulate a response, there was another knock at the door. I didn't need to check to know who it was. Mom, of course. Nora never showed up without backup when it mattered most to her. Girls, Mom called out cheerfully as she swept inside, a garment bag draped over her arm like a prize. I thought I'd find you both here. Alice, honey, I picked up your dress from the closet at home. I figured we could do a quick fitting with Nora right now. My stomach dropped. My dress. They had gone into my childhood room without asking. I felt a wave of nausea as Mom unzipped the garment bag, revealing the ivory lace I had dreamed about for months. Mom, I managed to choke out. You went into my room? Don't be dramatic, sweetie, she said, brushing it off like I had asked about the weather. We're family. She held up the dress and Nora was already slipping off her jacket, stepping forward with a gleam of triumph in her eyes. Mom turned the dress toward her and beamed. It's perfect, Mom declared. Even better than on you, Alice. The color really suits Nora's complexion. The audacity hit me like a slap. I fumbled for my phone, texting Samantha. SOS, come over, now. I haven't said yes, I interjected, but they ignored me. Nora was already stepping into my dress and Mom was zipping it up the back like they had rehearsed this moment. Oh my God, Nora gasped, twirling in front of my mirror. It's like it was made for me. You look absolutely stunning, Mom gushed, her hands clasped together in delight. Alice, isn't your sister beautiful? I stared, my vision tunneling on my dress, hugging my sister's frame like some cruel joke. The dress I had sacrificed overtime shifts to afford. The dress I had pictured wearing as I danced with Nicholas at our wedding. Take it off, I said quietly, my voice like a thread barely holding together. Nora turned, frowning. What? I said, take it off, it's my dress. I bought it for my wedding. Mom sighed, that exasperated, disappointed sigh she reserved just for me. Alice, don't be selfish. Your sister needs it first, and you know how important this is to her. Important to her? I echoed, my voice rising with anger. What about what's important to me? Just once? You're being ridiculous, Nora shot back, smoothing the lace over her hips like it was already hers. It's just a dress, and you know I'll take better care of it than... The door burst open, cutting her off. Samantha strode in, her eyes narrowing as she took in the scene. What the hell is going on? Perfect timing. Nora beamed, oblivious. Sam, doesn't this dress look amazing on me? Samantha's expression hardened as she walked straight toward me, planting herself between me and my family. Mrs. Ortiz, Samantha said with icy politeness. With all due respect, that dress belongs to Alice. You cannot just take it. We're not taking it, Mom protested, her voice defensive. We're borrowing it, for family. Samantha turned to me, her voice soft but firm. Alice, what do you want? I looked at Nora, glowing in my stolen dress. At my mother, ready to die on the hill of defending her favorite daughter. At Samantha, my best friend, the only person who had ever truly seen me. Keep it, I said at last, my voice eerily calm. Alice? Samantha frowned. No, really, I continued. Keep it, Nora. You always get what you want anyway, right? What's one more thing? Do not be dramatic, Nora said, rolling her eyes. I'll give it back in perfect condition. I'm sure you will. I met her gaze in the mirror, my tone ice cold. I hope it brings you exactly what you deserve. Mom clapped her hands, beaming like she had won. See, that's the spirit. Now, Nora, let's talk about alterations. After they finally left, taking my dress with them, Samantha crossed her arms. Tell me you're not really okay with this. I walked to the window, watching Nora carefully load my dress into her car. I exhaled slowly. You know what's funny? I said, a strange sense of clarity washing over me. For the first time, I actually am okay with it. Because I finally know exactly what I'm going to do. That look in your eyes is terrifying, Samantha said, a grin creeping onto her face. I love it. What's the plan? I turned to her, smiling wickedly. How much do you know about garden fountain systems? Not much, she replied, but I am willing to learn. Good, I said, pulling out my laptop. We are not going to be evil, just karmic. Samantha let out a laugh. My God, Alice, this is going to be good, isn't it? Oh, you have no idea. I began typing with a grin growing wider by the second. Let's just say my dress isn't the only thing that's going to be perfect on Nora's big day. Revenge might not be a word I'd use openly, but let's call it karma. You want me to do what? Nicholas stared at me over the kitchen table, his coffee cup frozen halfway to his mouth. Just keep Ashton busy during the rehearsal dinner, I repeated, sliding him a piece of toast. Take him for drinks afterward, that's all. He carefully set his cup down, narrowing his eyes. While you and Samantha do something to the fountain? His tone was suspicious, but there was also curiosity. I nodded casually. Yes, exactly. You sure about this, Alice? Nicholas was still doubtful, though I noticed the corner of his mouth twitching slightly. Got it! Samantha's voice rang out from the couch. She was sprawled out with her laptop balanced on her knees. The maintenance schedule shows they service the fountain every Tuesday, which means their final check will be exactly 4 days before the wedding. Trust me, I said, squeezing Nicholas's hand. Nothing dangerous or illegal, just karmic. Like what happened at your sweet 16? Nicholas raised an eyebrow knowingly. When Nora spilled punch all over your dress right before your first dance, exactly like that? Exactly. I pulled up a chair beside Samantha. Show me what you found. She turned the laptop toward me, beaming. The fountain runs on a basic system. All we need is access to the control panel for about 15 minutes. And you know how to do this? How? Nicholas asked skeptically, leaning in. My cousin's a landscaper, Samantha replied with a grin. I called in a favor. He explained everything. Pressure valves, timing mechanisms, the whole works. Simple adjustments, nothing permanent. Nicholas crossed his arms and raised an eyebrow. When you say adjustments? Just a slight increase in water pressure, I explained. Timed perfectly for when Nora's standing in my dress right in front of the fountain during the vows. Splash! Samantha added with a dramatic flourish. Nicholas shook his head, letting out a small laugh. You're both insane! And I'm probably going to hell for finding this funny. Just then, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Nora. Dress fitting tomorrow. Mom says you should come. Show support. Speaking of hell, I muttered, showing them the message. Perfect! Samantha sat up straight, her eyes gleaming. While you're at the fitting, I can scout the venue. The wedding coordinator already knows me as your +1. Nicholas added, I'll take Ashton to lunch, keep him distracted. Maybe subtly suggest taking photos by the fountain during the ceremony. I blinked in surprise. You're in? He pulled me close, kissing my forehead. Babe, I've seen Nora and your parents treat you like a second-class citizen for years. If this is how you need to handle it, I'm with you. Just promise me you won't do anything you can't come back from. Promise, I said softly, hugging him tight. It's just water. Expensive dress water, but still just water. The next day I sat in the bridal boutique, watching Nora preen in my dress. She had already had it taken in. The lace now hugged her curves perfectly. It needs more sparkle, Mom declared from the side. Maybe we could add some crystals along the neckline? Mom, no, I started, but Nora was already nodding. Brilliant idea, nothing too gaudy, just enough to make it pop. Alice, you don't mind, right? We'll pay for the additions. I thought about the fountain, about perfect timing and poetic justice. Whatever you think is best, Nora, it's your day after all. My phone buzzed again. Venue scouted. You won't believe where they keep the control panel. This is almost too easy. Samantha's text brought a smirk to my lips. Alice? Mom's voice cut through my thoughts. Are you even paying attention? We're discussing the alterations. Sorry, I replied sweetly. Just wedding planning stuff of my own. You know, for next year when I was supposed to wear that dress? A flicker of guilt crossed Nora's face, but it was gone so quickly I almost missed it. She twirled in front of the mirror, her ivory lace catching the light. Oh, please, you can find another dress. This one was meant for me. Look how perfect it is. I had to admit she looked beautiful, like a princess in a fairy tale. Too bad she was about to walk straight into a plot twist. My phone buzzed once more. Got the timing down. During the vows, you'll need to be standing by the east pillar. That's your cue spot. What are you smiling about? Nora asked, adjusting her veil. Just thinking about your perfect day, I said, my voice perfectly sincere. I can't wait to see how it all turns out. Mom beamed, her smile radiant with pride as if my apparent acceptance had healed years of tension. That's the spirit, honey. Family first, right? She said, her voice saccharine and hopeful. Right, I echoed, forcing a smile while subtly typing back to Samantha. Operation Karma was a go. I glanced at Nora, who stood admiring her reflection in the full-length mirror, spinning slightly as she studied every curve of the dress that was supposed to be mine. Memories of a lifetime's worth of slights played like a slideshow in my mind. The stolen birthday wishes, the prom date who mysteriously bailed, the college acceptance letter that she borrowed before I even got to hold it in my hands. Yet here we were, just 3 weeks from her wedding, and once again, she was in the spotlight. But not for long. The night before the big day, Mom and Dad hosted a special dinner, which, as usual, was code for another Nora show. The family gathered around the long oak table, dim candlelight flickering as the conversation inevitably drifted to stories from our childhood. Nora, swirling her wine, chuckled. Remember Alice's 7th birthday? She began, grinning mischievously. When she tried to blow out my candles? They were my candles, I snapped, stabbing my fork into my salad with more force than necessary. It was my birthday party. You just decided you wanted to blow them out too. Nora paused, her brow furrowing in mock confusion. Did I? Mom, wasn't that my party? Mom chuckled softly and reached to pat Nora's hand. Darling, does it really matter? You girls shared everything back then. Shared? I muttered under my breath, my gaze dropping to the glass of water in front of me. Under the table, Nicholas squeezed my knee, a silent reminder to keep my composure. Dad raised his glass, breaking the awkward silence. Speaking of sharing, he announced with a broad smile, I'd like to make a toast to our beautiful daughter. Nora, you've always been our shining star. The fork in my hand clattered against the plate. The entire room fell silent. Alice? Mom's voice was laced with warning, her eyes narrowing as she anticipated my response. No, please, continue, I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. Tell us more about your shining star. Maybe you can share the story of how she borrowed my prom date or the time she showed off my college acceptance letter before I even saw it. Nora waved a dismissive hand. That's ancient history. Why are you being so dramatic? Dramatic? I laughed bitterly. You're wearing my wedding dress tomorrow. The tension snapped like a rubber band stretched too far. Girls, Dad interjected, his tone attempting to soothe. Let's not ruin the evening. My phone buzzed on the table. Samantha's message flashed across the screen. Everything's ready for tomorrow. You sure about this? I looked at the faces around the table. Dad, forever the avoider of conflict. Mom, practically cooing over Nora. And Nora herself, the picture of innocence with a hint of smugness. My head buzzed with unspoken words and I needed air. I'm stepping out for a minute, I announced, pushing back my chair. Nicholas made a move to follow, but I shook my head. I needed to be alone. Out in the backyard, the cool night air hit my face like a wake-up call. I found my way to the old swing set, now rusted and creaking in the wind. I sat, letting the swing sway gently beneath me. It was here that Nora had pushed me off once, breaking my arm. An accident, they all said at the time, just like everything else. Penny for your thoughts? Dad's voice broke through the quiet. He stood a few feet away, hands stuffed in his pockets, his expression unsure. Save it for Nora's wedding gift, I muttered, not bothering to look at him. He sighed heavily and sat beside me on the other swing. You know, when you girls were younger, your mother and I thought we were doing the right thing. Nora was always so demanding. We figured you were the strong one, the one who could handle getting less attention. And that makes it okay? I shot back, bitterness seeping into my voice. No, he admitted quietly. It doesn't. We sat in silence, the chains groaning softly with each gentle sway. Finally, he spoke again. That dress, I know you bought it yourself. I saw the receipts, the extra shifts you took. I swallowed hard, unwilling to show the sudden tightness in my throat. Yeah, you should have helped. I should have, he agreed. My phone buzzed again, Samantha, sending final details. I stared at the screen, thoughts swirling between justice and revenge. Dad, I said suddenly, do you remember my sweet 16? The punch incident? He winced. Nora said it was an accident. It wasn't, I whispered. She told me later she did it because I was getting too much attention. Dad sighed deeply. Alice, and now she's wearing your dress tomorrow. The one thing I wanted that was just mine, I said, standing. So tell me, Dad, what would you do? He looked at me, eyes searching for an answer he could not find. Something's going to happen tomorrow, isn't it? Maybe karma's finally catching up, I replied, meeting his gaze steadily. After a moment, he pulled out his wallet and handed me a check. Here, he said, for your dress. Whatever happens tomorrow, you deserve to have your own perfect day. I stared at the check, emotions tangled in my chest. A little late, don't you think? Better late than never? He tried a weak smile. Just be careful tomorrow. Your mother's heart isn't what it used to be. I tucked the check into my pocket, giving a short nod. Don't worry, Dad. Everything will be exactly as it should be. Back inside, Nora was showing Mom a diamond bracelet, her something borrowed from Ashton's mother. The irony burned in my throat like acid. Alice! She called out, her voice annoyingly chipper. There you are! I need your help with my final fitting tonight. One last sister moment before the big day. I clenched my fists, thinking about karma, about the fountain, about Dad's too late apology. For a moment, I hesitated. Maybe this was my chance to walk away. But then Nora added with a casual smile, the dress might need a few more adjustments. You don't mind if we make some changes, right? And just like that, my resolve solidified. Tomorrow, everything would change. And just like that, my resolve solidified into steel. Of course not. I smiled to myself, feeling the thrill of anticipation. Tomorrow was going to be absolutely perfect. Nicholas met my eyes across the room, his brow arched in silent question. I gave him a subtle nod. The plan was on track. Tomorrow, karma was set to make a grand entrance, right on schedule. The garden outside was a vision straight out of a fairy tale. White chairs neatly lined the pathway leading to the altar, delicate rose petals scattered in soft pinks and reds. The fountain, our pièce de résistance, trickled sweetly behind the wedding arch, giving no hint of the havoc it was about to unleash. Everything was going exactly as planned. Everything's ready, Samantha whispered as she slipped into the bridal suite. Her voice was low but brimming with excitement. I nodded and double-checked my phone for the timing. During Till Death Do Us Part, the fountain was going to put on a performance no one would ever forget. Across the room, Nora twirled in the dress that should have been mine, was mine, now adorned with crystals and pearls she had insisted on adding. Mom hovered, adjusting Nora's veil as the makeup artist applied finishing touches. Everything looked picture perfect on the surface. But perfection has a way of hiding cracks, and oh, how those cracks would show soon. You're being awfully quiet, Alice, Mom noted, glancing over her shoulder at me. Everything okay? I smiled, careful to keep my expression neutral. Just taking it all in, I replied, glancing down at my phone. A text from Nicholas buzzed in. Ashton's in position, convinced him the fountain backdrop would be perfect for photos. Perfect! I tucked my phone away as the wedding coordinator popped her head inside. Girls, we're starting in 15 minutes. Places, please. Nora grabbed my hands suddenly, her gaze shifting, momentarily vulnerable. You'll be right behind me, right? As my maid of honor? For a brief second, I saw her. Not the entitled, conniving woman she had become, but my sister, my real sister. I saw the girl I had grown up with, the one who built blanket forts with me and whispered secrets during thunderstorms. That version of her had been lost somewhere along the way, buried under competition and favoritism. Alice? Her voice wavered slightly, pulling me back to the present. Right behind you, I assured her softly, shoving those memories aside. Where else would I be? The music swelled, and I took my place in line. Bridesmaids proceeded one by one down the aisle. Samantha squeezed my arm as she passed, her voice barely above a whisper. East Pillar, do not forget. Then it was Nora's turn. She appeared at the entrance, radiant in the dress I had once dreamed of wearing. Mom and Dad flanked her, both beaming as though this was the happiest moment of their lives. Guests gasped appropriately, marveling at the spectacle. I followed a few steps behind, counting each stride, my eyes locked on the fountain, noting the way sunlight danced on its surface. The ceremony began, but I barely registered the priest's words. My focus remained on timing, on every detail that had to align perfectly. My heartbeat quickened as the priest announced, "The couple has written their own vows." Ashton went first, his voice warm and sincere. His words were sweet enough that, for a moment, guilt tugged at the edges of my conscience. But it was fleeting. This was not just payback, it was balance, long overdue. Nora began her vows, her tone dripping with the confidence she had always worn like armor. "Ashton, from the moment we met, I knew you were mine. Just like I have always known what I wanted and always gotten it." My jaw tightened as I caught Dad's eye. He gave a subtle nod. He knew. They all knew, on some level, that today was about more than just a wedding. "I promise to always be the center of your world," she continued, oblivious to the storm brewing around her. My phone buzzed again, a signal from Samantha. "Showtime." I shifted toward the east pillar. Nora's voice rang out. "Until death do us part." Right on cue, the fountain's spray pattern shifted. At first it was subtle, a faint change in sound that made a few guests glance over their shoulders. The priest continued speaking, unaware of the mounting tension. 3, 2, 1. The fountain erupted. A column of water shot into the air, glittering in the sunlight like shards of crystal. For a heartbeat, it was mesmerizing. And then gravity took over. The water came crashing down, drenching Nora, Ashton, and half the wedding party in a torrential downpour. Screams and gasps filled the garden. Nora froze, her perfect hair collapsing in sodden clumps. The crystals she had added to my dress amplified the disaster, refracting sunlight into rainbow arcs as she shrieked. "My dress!" she wailed, voice cracking. "The fountain! Someone do something!" Chaos broke loose. Guests leapt from their seats, some running for cover, others fumbling to help. The wedding coordinator barked into her radio, frantically calling for maintenance. Samantha, half hidden behind a flower arrangement, fought to contain her laughter. Across the aisle, Nicholas stood among the groomsmen, his expression carefully neutral. The fountain sputtered to a stop, but the damage was done. Nora turned slowly, mascara streaking down her face like twin rivers of ink. Her eyes locked onto me. "You!" Her voice was low, dangerous. "You are the only one who's dry." I tilted my head, feigning innocence. "What are you talking about? It was just a malfunction." "Like my punch spill was just an accident?" she hissed under her breath, her fury barely restrained. I smiled softly, stepping closer. "Sometimes, Nora, things have a funny way of working themselves out. Wouldn't you agree?" We stared at each other, years of rivalry and resentment crashing into one definitive moment. It was all there, the silent accusations, the unspoken history, the weight of every petty slight and calculated dig. She knew. I knew she knew, and she knew I knew she knew. The tension between us practically vibrated in the air. I folded my arms, raising an eyebrow with a calmness I did not feel. "Well," I said quietly, "I guess some things are just meant to be shared, right?" Her nostrils flared. Before she could respond, Mom rushed over, carrying a fresh stack of towels like she was running a crisis center. "Nora, honey," she cooed in that too-sweet voice that always made me want to gag. "Come on, let's get you inside and dried off. We can still salvage this." As Mom shepherded her away, I caught the tail end of Nora's furious whisper. "I want Alice out of here. Now." My gaze locked with Dad's across the room. He shook his head slightly in that universal dad way of, not now, not here, but there was the faintest twitch of a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. Oh, he knew too. The wedding coordinator bustled up to me, her clipboard clutched like a life preserver. She looked like she was one lost seating chart away from a mental breakdown. "We'll need about an hour to reset," she said, her eyes darting nervously toward the ominous sky. "Could you help coordinate the guests?" I plastered on a smile. "Of course. It's my sister's perfect day after all," I replied, my voice dripping with faux enthusiasm. What else could possibly go wrong? As if on cue, a low rumble of thunder rolled across the venue. I glanced skyward. Karma had decided to make a special guest appearance. Rain had not been part of the original wedding plan, but apparently Mother Nature had a sense of humor. The next hour was pure chaos. The staff scrambled to move everything indoors while I stood on the venue's covered porch watching sheets of rain drench the carefully manicured garden. It was like something out of a biblical disaster movie. Samantha, one of my friends from college, sidled up beside me holding 2 glasses of champagne. "Did you order the rain too?" she teased, handing me one of the glasses. "All Mother Nature," I said with a shrug, taking a sip. "But I appreciate her enthusiasm." From inside, Nora's melodramatic wails echoed through the hall. "It's ruined! The dress is ruined! Everything is ruined!" "Speaking of enthusiasm," Samantha muttered, rolling her eyes. Before I could respond, the door burst open and Mom stormed out. "Alice, get in here, now!" I sighed, handing my glass back to Samantha. Showtime. The bridal suite looked like a war zone. My bridesmaid dress lay in a crumpled, soaked heap in one corner. Nora was sitting in her slip, her face streaked with mascara as if she had been crying for hours. 3 attendants buzzed around her like frantic bees, trying to salvage what was left of her hair and makeup. Mom was in full general mode, barking orders left and right. "Fix this," she demanded, pointing at me like I was some kind of miracle worker. "Fix what?" I asked, inspecting my nails like I had all the time in the world. "Do not play innocent," Nora hissed, looking up from her hands. Her eyes were bloodshot and filled with rage. "You did this! You ruined my wedding!" "Did I?" I said, feigning confusion. "Prove it." "You are the only one who did not get soaked. You were standing under that pillar, smirking." I shrugged. "Lucky coincidence. Like when you spilled punch all over my dress at my Sweet 16? Or when you accidentally deleted my college acceptance email? Or how about that time you stole my prom date?" "That was different!" Nora shot to her feet, scattering hairpins in every direction. "Sure," I said, stepping closer. "Those were all just harmless accidents, right? Or maybe it is just you, always needing to be the center of attention, always taking what is mine." "Girls," Mom interjected, her voice strained. "No, Mom." I cut her off, my voice steady but sharp. "Let's talk about it. Let's talk about how Nora took the dress I paid for with my own money, how you helped her, how you have always taken what you wanted from me because family shares and Nora needs it more." "I needed that dress," Nora screamed. "It was perfect. It was mine." Thunder crashed outside, momentarily silencing everyone. In the tense quiet that followed, I could hear whispers from curious guests in the hallway. Great! We were providing premium drama for the wedding gossip circuit. "You want to know something funny?" I said softly, stepping even closer. "I almost stopped it. Right before the fountain went off, I stood there watching you say your vows and I thought about calling it off." "But you didn't," Nora said bitterly. "No, because you needed to learn that you cannot always take what is not yours without consequences." "Consequences?" Mom echoed, her voice trembling with fury. "Alice, do you realize what you have done? You have ruined your sister's wedding." "No, Mom," I corrected. "I ruined her stolen moment. There is a difference." A knock at the door interrupted us. Dad peeked his head inside. "The guests are getting restless. What should I tell them?" Nora let out another wail, collapsing back into her chair. "My wedding is destroyed." "Stop being dramatic," I said, surprising even myself with how calm I sounded. "Your dress is wet, not destroyed. The venue has industrial dryers. You can still get married today." "In a damp dress?" she shrieked. "Better than no dress at all," I pointed out, "which is what I'll have for my wedding now." Dad cleared his throat. "About that, I made some calls. The boutique you bought from has another dress on hold. Different style, but they said it is even better than the first one." Everyone stared at him in shock. "You what?" Mom demanded. "It was the least I could do," Dad said, meeting my eyes, "after everything." Nora looked between us, the realization hitting her like a truck. "You knew," she accused him. "You knew she was planning this." "I knew something was coming," Dad admitted. "And honestly, I cannot say I blame her." "This is insane," Mom sputtered. "We are family. We are supposed to support each other." I just smiled faintly. "Yeah, Mom. Funny how that works." "Exactly," I said, my voice steady and unwavering. Support. Not take, not steal, not always favor one over the other. Another knock broke the tense silence. This time it was the wedding coordinator. She peeked in hesitantly. "The dryers are ready, and we've reset the indoor ceremony space. It's actually quite lovely with the rain as a backdrop. Should we proceed?" Nora stared at herself in the mirror. Her makeup was smeared beyond recognition, her hair clumped and frizzy from the rain. My dress, no, the dress that used to be mine, hung limply on a rack beside her. She slowly turned to me, her expression unreadable. "You know what? Yes, we'll proceed," she said, standing a little straighter. Determination sharpened her features. "Get me dried off, fix my makeup, and let's do this." I hesitated before asking, "But Nora?" "What?" "After today, we are done. Sister or not, we are done." Nora didn't flinch. She gave me a curt nod, as if she had been expecting it. "Fair enough." I nodded back, a strange lightness settling over me. "Seems fair. Need help with your makeup?" "Get out." I turned to leave, but paused at the door. "For what it's worth, Nora, I really did love that dress." I meant it, though the dress no longer represented what it once did. Outside, Samantha was waiting with the champagne we had rescued earlier. She held out my glass. "Well," I sighed, taking a sip, "the wedding will go on, but I just lost a sister." "No," Samantha said firmly, clinking her glass against mine. You just found yourself. The rain continued to fall in gentle sheets, washing away the tension and anger that had clung to me like a second skin. By the time the indoor ceremony began, the rain had slowed to a drizzle. It was not quite the fairy tale Nora had dreamed of, but it was happening. I watched from the back, no longer part of the wedding party. My dress, still damp, had lost its pristine charm. Some of the crystals had loosened and hung in sad clusters. But Nora walked down the makeshift aisle, head held high, determined not to meet my gaze. Nicholas slipped his arm around my waist, grounding me. You okay? He whispered. Before I could answer, Mom appeared beside us, her face tight with anger. Alice, we need to talk. Not now, Mom. Yes, now. She grabbed my arm, her grip like iron, and pulled me toward an empty hallway. Nicholas started to follow, but I waved him off. Mom spun on me once we were alone. How could you? Your own sister. That is rich. Coming from you. I leaned back against the wall, exhaustion hitting me all at once. When was the last time you actually treated me like your daughter, Mom? Not just as Nora's backup, not just as the reliable one. When? Do not turn this around on me. You deliberately sabotaged. Her wedding is still happening, I cut in. She is still getting married. The only thing I ruined was her perfect moment in my stolen dress. It wasn't stolen, it was borrowed. Without asking, without my permission, just like everything else in my life. Mom's face crumpled for a moment before she straightened again. I don't understand where all this bitterness is coming from. We gave you everything. No, you gave Nora everything. I got the leftovers. And you know what the worst part is? You don't even see it. That is not true. Really? When I got engaged, you barely acknowledged it. When I bought my wedding dress with my own money, you helped Nora take it. When was the last time you were proud of me, Mom? Just me. Not in comparison to Nora. She opened her mouth, but no words came. We both heard the applause from the ceremony room. The vows had ended. Mom adjusted her jacket, her face unreadable. I hope you are happy. Your sister will never forgive you for this. Maybe not, I said softly. But for the first time, I forgive myself for not being her. Mom's eyes narrowed. What is that supposed to mean? It means I'm done. Done trying to be the perfect sister, the understanding daughter. Done with being invisible. Dad appeared at the end of the hallway. They're about to do photos. Alice, maybe you should go. I nodded but felt Mom's grip tighten on my arm again. This isn't over. Actually, it is. I gently pried her hand away. I already called the boutique. They're holding a new dress for me, one that's mine. Dad's right, it's time for me to go. You are choosing to leave your sister's wedding? No, Mom, I am choosing myself, for once. Nicholas and Samantha were waiting for me at the entrance. The rain had finally stopped, leaving the world fresh and clean. Ready? Nicholas asked, squeezing my hand. Wait. Dad's voice stopped us. He held out an envelope. Your mother. She doesn't understand yet, but I do. Take this. Inside the envelope was a check, enough to buy 2 dresses. I stared at him speechless. Get whatever you want, Dad said, his voice gruff. Whatever makes you happy. And Alice, I am sorry for everything. I hugged him tightly, breathing in the familiar scent of his aftershave. I know. Thank you. Will you be at Sunday dinner next week? He asked hopefully. I don't think that's a good idea. Not for a while. He nodded, the sadness in his eyes deepening. We will figure something out. Maybe just you and me, sometimes. I'd like that. As we walked to the car, I heard Nora's voice echo across the parking lot. Where is she? She cannot just leave. Watch me, I muttered under my breath, earning a smirk from Samantha as she linked her arm through mine. The rain had washed everything clean, but for the first time, I felt truly free. So, dress shopping tomorrow? Samantha asked casually as we pulled away from the venue. I glanced at her, my lips curving into a smile. Actually, I said, I'm thinking of wearing a suit to the wedding. Something completely different, something that's me. Samantha raised an eyebrow and let out a low chuckle. Now that I'd love to see, she said as Nicholas laughed beside her. The scene behind us faded in the rearview mirror. Nora's wedding party posing by the now peaceful fountain, a photographer arranging everyone like a human puzzle. I caught sight of my sister one last time, tugging at the hem of her borrowed dress, still chasing that illusion of a perfect moment. You know what's funny? I said after a moment as we turned onto the main road. I actually feel lighter. Samantha gave me a knowing look. That's what happens when you stop carrying other people's expectations, she replied. Wise words, honestly. My phone buzzed, a text from Dad. Proud of you, kiddo. Always have been. I swallowed a lump in my throat. Maybe some things really do have to fall apart before they can come together properly. Maybe the best revenge isn't about evening the score. Maybe it's about standing up and saying, enough. And maybe, just maybe, karma doesn't just punish. Maybe it sets things right. The boutique door chimed as I pushed it open, the crisp ring echoing through the small, polished space. Samantha and Mom followed behind me, but the air between them was charged with that awkward tension that only family can create, thick enough to cut with a knife. I still think this is a mistake, Mom muttered, her disapproving gaze settling on a rack of suits. A bride should wear a dress. Good thing it's not your wedding then, I shot back without missing a beat. The consultant, a woman with a warm smile, approached us. I turned to her. Hi, I have an appointment to try on suits. Mom sighed, louder than necessary, and took a seat. Honestly, the fact that she was here at all was a miracle. It had taken 3 missed Sunday dinners, 2 heartfelt talks with Dad, and 1 very loud, very emotional phone argument to get her to agree to come today. But progress was progress, even if it came with running commentary. The consultant brought out several options, each carefully chosen. The first one was a classic white tuxedo with satin lapels. I had barely slipped it on when the boutique door chimed again. Sorry I'm late, Dad called out as he stepped inside. Traffic was... He stopped mid-sentence, eyes widening as he took in the sight of me. Wow, kiddo, you like it? I turned to face him, adjusting the cuffs slightly. I do, I really do. His eyes glimmered with emotion. You look like yourself. Finally. Mom hesitated. It's certainly different, she said cautiously. Different is good, Samantha cut in. Different means it's truly Alice's choice. I turned to the mirror again, taking in the reflection. No lace, no crystals, no borrowed expectations, just me. Speaking of choices, Mom began carefully, Nora asked about you yesterday. The air shifted. I focused on adjusting the jacket collar, my voice deliberately neutral. Did she? She and Ashton are back from their honeymoon, Mom continued. She mentioned maybe getting coffee. Mom, I warned quietly. I'm not pushing, she insisted. I've been thinking about what you said, about how I always favored her, about how that made you feel invisible. She twisted her hands nervously in her lap. Maybe you were not entirely wrong. I looked at her reflection in the mirror. Maybe? I prompted. She stood and came to stand beside me, her eyes softer than I'd seen in years. Okay, you were not wrong at all, she admitted. Looking at you now, in this suit that's so perfectly you, I realize I never really saw you before. I was so busy trying to shape you into what I thought you should be, into what Nora was, that I missed who you actually are. Mom, let me finish, she interrupted. When you stood up to us at the wedding, it scared me. Not because of what you did to the fountain, though honestly that was quite something, but because for the first time I saw you clearly, and I realized just how much I'd missed. Dad stepped forward, clearing his throat. We both did, kiddo. I turned to face them both fully. So what now? Now, Mom said, taking my hand gently, we start over. If you'll let us, and if you want to meet Nora for coffee, well, that's your choice. No pressure, no expectations, and no more taking things that are not hers. Or anyone else's, Dad added, giving Mom a pointed look. She nodded in agreement. Though, she added with a small smile, Nora did say to tell you she's sorry. About the dress, and the punch, and the prom date, and the college letter. I laughed. That is quite a list. You made quite an impression with that fountain, Samantha chimed in, smirking. The consultant brought out another suit, this one with a subtle, shimmering pattern that caught the light beautifully. Try this one, Samantha suggested, handing it to me. It reminds me of water. Everyone groaned in unison, but I was already slipping into the jacket. Too soon? Samantha teased. Never too soon to own your moment, Dad grinned. As I changed, I heard Mom actually engaging with Samantha about the wedding plans, her voice no longer dripping with criticism but curiosity. Dad offered suggestions about venues. Maybe somewhere without fountains this time, he joked. For the first time, this felt like my wedding, my choices, my family finally seeing me. The new suit fit perfectly, as if it had been waiting for me all along. Standing there, surrounded by people who were actually looking at me instead of past me, I realized something. Karma is not just about revenge. Sometimes it is about breaking patterns, about standing up and being seen for who you are. Well, I asked, turning to face them all, what do you think? Mom smiled, her eyes misty. It is perfect, she said softly, just like you. I raised an eyebrow. Does this mean I can wear a suit to Sunday dinner? Do not push it, she warned, but she was smiling. My phone buzzed. A message from Nora. The coffee offer is real. No drama, no competition, just sisters, if you want. I showed the message to Samantha. She shrugged. Your choice. Always your choice now. I typed back a simple reply. Maybe, but I am ordering my own drink. Her response came almost instantly. Fair enough. I deserve that. Looking around the boutique at my family, Mom helping instead of controlling, Dad beaming with pride, Samantha plotting who knows what mischief, I realized one last thing. Sometimes the best revenge is not revenge at all. Sometimes it is simply becoming who you were always meant to be and letting everyone else adjust to that truth.